This video is going to showcase the stacking beetle separator. This is a 3-tray tower. It comes with a lid and a top tray that has a ramp and a bottom collection tray that beetles will fall into. So here's how it works. When you place beetles in this top tray, they will crawl up the ramp, fall off the edge here, and down a couple ramps to soften their blow, and into a collection tray at the bottom, filled with substrate, food, whatever. There is a lid just to help keep them in the system all together. This lid also doubles as a pupa bridge if you ever want a pupa bridge, if you're not using the beetle separator. This is a set overnight and forget type of system. So the beetles aren't going to all crawl off on their own in just a matter of minutes. It'll take them a few hours, but it's a great way to separate beetles from dead beetles and substrate and food particles without doing any labor. So let me put some beetles in here and let's take a closer look. Before adding beetles to your beetle separating tower, it's a good idea to separate the beetles from their substrate. This substrate, which is usually wheat bran or oats or dog food or any other cereal-based material that you use, is going to be filled with hundreds, hopefully thousands of beetle eggs. And so we need to separate them so they don't get mixed up into the tower. I'm just going to dump these out into the container for now to show you, because at the bottom of the tray, you're going to see all of this sticky stuff. These are eggs that have been kind of stuck to the bottom of the container. That's how you know that they're laying eggs. When you see the sign, it's a very healthy sign. You don't ever want to scrape this out. You want to put the beetles back into the same tray. Eventually, the eggs will hatch, and when you switch out your substrate, the baby worms are going to go into the next tray for you. A common question I hear is, how do you remove the dead beetles from a tray? The trick isn't to remove the dead beetles, it's actually to remove the live beetles, and that's what our beetle separating tower helps to do. So now that I've got all of my beetles dead and alive, plus a few other things separated, we're going to put them in the tower and show you how it works. All right, we're going to start by prepping the bottom tray. We just want to put fresh bedding down, so when the beetles fall, they have something to land on. This is just wheat bran. This is 2 pounds of it from my local feed store. You can source it from Tractor Supply, feed stores, online, bunch of ideas. The best strategy, though, is just to make sure you freeze or bake the bran to remove any eggs that might be in there from other critters like mites or pantry moths. You don't need a whole thick layer of bran for beetles because they really like to stay on the top of the surface. And this is where I'm going to keep the beetles for a long time. So normally I'd probably put it another double layer of that, maybe a full inch, because the females like to burrow down a little bit to lay their eggs. But this is just a temporary setup. I just want something soft for them to land on and to eat on while they're waiting. Another thing you could do is put some carrots or potatoes down here, have the smell kind of attract your beetles down below if you like to. I'm not going to do that today because we're not going to make a mess. But that's it. You just have to put substrate on the bottom. The next step is to put in the second level. Kind of secures so it's not going to move. Remember, we're not shaking these like sifters. We just put them in and let it forget overnight. So now we have the beetles. We're just going to pour them into the top tray. If you purchase this, you can leave the paper on this part. The whole thing is covered with paper and you peel it off, but you can leave the paper on these ridges so that it gives them something to climb up on. But immediately you see beetles climbing up and falling into the tray below. That little guy is eventually going to flip over. Oh, there's another friend. And they're just going to eventually, on their own, self-sort. You're going to have a bunch of dead material and paper bits and food bits left over, and all your live beetles are going to make it down here eventually. I'm going to end this portion of the video and then put it on a speed lapse, time lapse, so you can see it in action. I also have a little fancy rotating surface here, so it'll be really fun. Stay tuned. All right, that time lapse that you just watched was exactly 30 minutes. And let's check out the results. In the top, we have a bunch of dead beetles, but there's a few still wandering around. In the bottom, 100% of these beetles are live beetles. And you know that because they had to crawl up and over to get here. So they're just chilling. A couple kids playing, doing their thing. Now, this is after just 30 minutes. Imagine if we left it overnight. How many of these would eventually get to the bottom? Imagine if we put an apple or some other juicy, sweet attractant down below to help get these beetles to make the plunge on their own. Not a single bit of effort did I have to do to sift out or pick out by hand. They just did it all on their own. This is the Beetle Separating Tower. It comes in acrylic, so the beetles are not able to crawl up. Again, there's a lid. And in addition to this size, I also have a giant version of this, which is 12 by 18.5 inches in size. That's like over 1.5 feet wide. And instead of one ramp, there's 2 ramps. So just imagine this with a second ramp and a larger containment area. Beetles can go in either direction and fall to the bottom. So look for that on my website as well. It's the giant Beetle Separating Tower. You can find it right next to the regular large size stacking Beetle Separator Tower.